Well. Hump Day Wednesday, and we're back. Mr. McDowell, Thomas McDowell, wasn't able to be here last week because of situations, and that happens. But by golly gee whiz, we have him back today. And I don't know exactly because Sandra usually gets the information. So I'm going to let him tell you about the topic we're going to be that he's going to be discussing. I'm just going to look like I know what I'm doing. So Thomas, tell us what's up today.
Well, glad to be here, and yes, a surprise topic I reckon today. We're going to talk about two of the most common over-the-counter medications. They're used for similar conditions, but Tylenol and Advil.
That's good.
And so
everybody knows about them.
So everybody, I'm sure everybody's heard of them, and probably everybody has taken them
I would think.
at some point. But there are some things to know about them that's helpful, because sometimes we think over-the-counter medications, oh, it's safe. You know, I can take it whenever I want. There's no, nothing to be worried about.
Side effects.
Yeah, exactly. But that's not exactly true. And so there's always something to know about a medication, and sometimes there's just as many reasons, something my grandfather always said, just as many reasons not to take a medication as there are to take one. And so always knowing, as much as you can about a drug, and knowledge is power. So we're going to get into some details about them. We've done a couple of videos on our social media at Medical Park Pharmacy about these two drugs as well, if you want to look for some more detail on our Facebook page afterwards. But Tylenol and Advil, mostly used for pain and fever. And so there's some main differences between the two, and we'll talk in some more detail. But Tylenol and Advil are not the same. They're both brand names. Tylenol, the active ingredient's acetaminophen, and for Advil, the active ingredient is ibuprofen. And so if you're going to the pharmacy, you want to pick up the cheaper generic, look for ibuprofen in place of Advil, look for acetaminophen or APAP. Sometimes you'll see that written out in place of the brand Tylenol. The brand versions are much more expensive. I'm a pharmacist. I take the generics, and so they're equivalent. And so the main difference between the two is Advil, ibuprofen, is an NSAID. It's a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. It has anti-inflammatory effects. Tylenol or acetaminophen does not.
Inflammation can be a real issue.
And Tylenol does nothing for inflammation. And so that's what you got to keep in mind. If you have inflammation or swelling,
use Advil.
Use Advil. And so in short courses, ideally. If you have pain and arthritis that's not inflammation driven, and you're just trying to treat some pain, Tylenol might be an option, and it's usually safer long term than Advil.
Okay, so each has its advantage.
Yep, Tylenol mainly for pain, arthritis that's not inflammation driven. Advil better for inflammation driven.
Okay.
And Advil has some more side effects.
Now listen, that's good information that you need to jot down or something, because if you're like me, I can't remember it after about 24 hours. So write it down, and if inflammation, Advil.
Yep.
And swelling.
Yeah. So if you twist an ankle or have a sports injury,
I've done that.
I bet you have. And so that you're going to have a lot better relief from the ibuprofen, from the NSAID, and there's if you see Motrin out there, that's another brand name. That's ibuprofen too. And there's a lot of prescription NSAIDs, Mobix, Celebrex, diclofenac, and so those are options. But the thing about the anti-inflammatory, the NSAIDs, is you want to be careful about the long-term use. So if we're talking about NSAIDs like Advil, ibuprofen, Motrin, if you're using those regularly, every day, there can be some effects on the kidneys, some effects on the stomach, and it's not good for the heart either. And so
that's a big three.
That's some very important organ systems there. And so you have to be really careful. I see a lot of folks telling me, well, I take, and another one's Aleve. That's an NSAID too, naproxen. So a lot of people will tell me, well, I take, Aleve every day or Advil every day. Is that okay?
I don't think taking the same thing every day may be good for anything.
That's if we can avoid it, that's
It's sort of like ice cream.
Yeah. Moderation is key. And so if you're really taking those things every day, I would, talk to your pharmacist about some other options. Talk to your prescriber, your doctor. Some people have to be on them long term for certain conditions, but if you are taking them regularly and you feel there's no other way or nothing else you can do, or you've tried other options, make sure you take it and drink plenty of water. That helps protect.
Water is still important.
That helps protect the kidneys. Helps kind of flush it through, and then eat food with it. That helps protect the stomach.
Any particular kind? Are vegetables better than meats, or
just food in general? Milk is okay too, but it kind of helps protect and coat the stomach. Rarely it can cause stomach bleeds, and so when we're talking about the dangers of it, that's what we're looking at. And if you're already on a blood thinner, and you're taking an NSAID like ibuprofen or Advil, you're increasing your risk of having a GI bleed. And I've seen people have those from NSAIDs. My grandfather took Advil very regularly, and he ended up having kidney issues later in life that we feel pretty confident stem from all of the NSAID ibuprofen use. And so short courses are usually fine, usually safe. And so just talk to your provider about it. And if looking at Tylenol, if you're thinking, okay, well, maybe I don't want to take the Advil all the time, let me look at Tylenol. Tylenol can be a safer option, especially for arthritis, and if you're going to be taking it long term.
Arthritis is a really big deal.
So most, the percentage is probably really high of folks, especially seniors, that have some osteoarthritis. You're losing some of the cartilage in your joints, some bone on bone. It just hurts.
Yeah.
There's not necessarily always inflammation there, but the Tylenol can help with the pain. And so Tylenol, a lot of people are thinking, well, I don't want to take Tylenol. It's bad for my liver. And so Tylenol is typically safe and does not harm your liver unless you take it in excessive doses.
That liver's a tough tool.
And so some people will say, well, I don't take it at all. I've heard it's bad for my liver. Well, in high excessive doses, yes, it is. It has a reactive metabolite that is toxic to the liver, but really not an issue unless you already have a liver condition or if you're taking high doses. So if you're looking at Tylenol, usually for the very max dose is 4,000 milligrams, but really it's probably safer to be under 3,000 milligrams per day.
Per day.
3,000 milligrams per day, spread out, not at one time. And so that's, as long as you're taking it the right way and as recommended, it's usually pretty safe. Unless it might be an issue if you already have liver disease or cirrhosis. But liver conditions and kidneys often is also in the genes, isn't it? Well,
or not? Is it self-created?
There seems to be some correlation to, at times, genetics and ethnicity, but usually for the most part, it comes from lifestyle. And
isn't it interesting that how that works? Because you can see these 95-year-old people that have had 4 or 5 drinks a day, smoked a pack of cigarettes a day for the last 85 years.
Yeah, that's probably genetics.
Oh, yeah. But you see people like that. You see people like that, and you say, how in the world? And then, well, the rest of the story on the other side of the coin.
Yeah, people that you see in their 40s and 50s with
like breast
multiple
cancer.
Health conditions. Yeah, I think, and the cancers sometimes seems genetic, but I think there's a lot of environmental factors that are going into that, and what we put in our body, what we're exposed to.
Well, you look at some of the areas in the country.
And so it's, but as far as like kidney diseases, sometimes they stem from long-term uncontrolled hypertension, and high blood pressure has
create a lot of damage.
Correlation. Yeah, uncontrolled hypertension is very dangerous, and that puts pressure on the kidneys. And so, you want to protect these organs, and what you're doing today is going to be an indicator for how your kidneys and liver are doing. If you're, drinking excessively every day, that can be tough on the liver. You see folks.
Yeah, some people, and it seems like to me that as I say, having been in the financial firms that if this person said, I had this, this, and this, well, the second generation had one of the three,
Yeah.
And it just seems like a continuum, and it may be the lifestyle of that particular family.
Yeah, there's some correlation there, and there's certainly a lot of things that do have some genetic correlation, and like we said, certain cancers do. When you talk about heart attacks and strokes, there's correlation there, but not necessarily from the stroke or the heart attack itself. Usually stems from high cholesterol in the family and those types of things, and high blood pressure, like we talked about. It usually there's certain conditions that are genetic, but then the actual event that occurs is not a genetic correlation, but it's what leads up to that event could have some genetic connection. And so, everything you put in your body has an effect on you.
Well,
good or bad.
You are what you eat.
That's right.
It's
That's a true
amazing all
statement.
these statements that you hear and don't think they mean anything, but they do.
Yeah, that's a very true statement. And so, when we talk about these over-the-counter drugs, you want to just be cautious of how often and what you're putting in. A good option I'll mention, if you feel like, well, I really need some anti-inflammatory effect, but my doctor, we see a lot of patients, and this is a good thing. My doctor told me not to take Advil. Well, there is an anti-inflammatory topical gel that you can use over the counter called Voltaren gel.
A gel.
It's a gel, so it doesn't have any systemic effects. So it doesn't have the kidney risk, the stomach risk, but it still gives you some localized
And what
relief.
was the name of that again?
Voltaren gel.
Voltaren.
Yep. Voltaren or diclofenac gel, over the counter. Available.
Well, that
at the pharmacy.
sounds like a nice alternative.
It's definitely something I would prefer over regular oral NSAID use, because, like I said, you can get that. Say that you have arthritis in your hands or your knees or your joints, and you can rub that Voltaren on there several times a day, get some localized relief. Basically, no side effects.
Well,
it's a safer option than the oral NSAIDs.
Well, here, I see it as I progress in age, and I was in the airport Sunday and Friday and stuff like that. It is simply amazing to me how much damage has been to Tom, Dick, and Harry, and Mary and Jane's knees. I sat there, and of course mine, since I had, fell and had the replacement of my tendons, and I have mobility, I'm not like I used to be. How many people limp and struggle and wheelchairs and seats?
Yeah, the mobility is a huge issue, and when you have a fall, that can just be deadly.
But Sandra's mother fell this morning. I think you heard me say that earlier.
Oh, yeah, they can be really tough because when you lose that mobility, our bodies are made to move, and it just seems like when you lose that strength, it gets really. It takes
Yeah,
three
the
times
balance and everything.
It takes 3 times as long to get it back as it does to lose it. You can be in a hospital bed for 3 weeks. That's why it's really important to just aggressively get after the physical therapy in those situations. And so anything you can do to maintain mobility, whether it's through some over-the-counter products or some topicals, is a good thing. Mobility is key. Moving is key. Our bodies are made to move. Even if you're not breaking a sweat, it's still important to move, because the biggest, one of the biggest ways we see people go downhill is just from a lack of mobility.
Yeah.
They lose their mobility, and then all of a sudden they start having all these other
Can't
issues.
exercise. Yeah.
Can't exercise, can't move, can't get healthy food, can't prepare healthy
That's
meals.
right. And living alone, if they can't, they give up that independence. Well, Thomas, it's about that time we're going to have to finish up, so I'm going to ask you and thank you again for because that's interesting, because this is everyday stuff. This is everyday stuff. But again, reinforce your location, what you do, and any closing statements as we will go to be
Yeah.
going to break.
So I'm Thomas McDowell, and I own Medical Park Pharmacy here in Rocky Mount, Boyce Willis Clinic Building or Medical Park Building, 901 North Winstead Avenue. First door on your right when you come in. We service the whole Rocky Mount area, not just the folks in that building. So we'd love to serve you. Free delivery, free medication packaging. Also own McDowell's Pharmacy in Scotland Neck. And we mentioned mobility and living alone. I also own a home care company called Happier at Home.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
And so one of the key things we do is help folks maintain independence and help monitor their mobility and safety, help them age in place in the home longer, and making sure trying to prevent falls is a key aspect of that. So we really can help in all areas of keeping you healthy and safe at home, from medication packaging and adherence and home delivery of medications and education and counseling, all the way to caregiving services in the home. And I'll probably talk about this in a future segment. We got just a little sneak preview. We've got a new program that we're doing where we can set patients up with a free blood pressure or blood glucose monitor.
That's something that you need to monitor because it can be on you not even know it.
We'll get their readings within a couple of seconds at the pharmacy remotely while they're in their home.
Is that right?
And be able to coordinate and give those readings over to their primary care provider.
That's wonderful.
And so we'll talk about that more on the next segment, because that's a neat service that anybody can use. If you're Medicare and Medicaid eligible, you're eligible for this service, and you don't have to be a patient at our pharmacy. And so we're really excited, and we're going to roll that out. And so I think it's going to be a great thing for patients, because if you're monitoring those blood pressure readings and those blood glucose readings, we can intervene and help before you get to a point where something bad happens, and we can communicate to your doctor for you. So really excited about that.
That's good news. And Thomas McDowell, we appreciate you being here. Look forward, Lord willing, in a couple weeks. If not, then we'll cover it and have you back when you can.
Looking forward to next time. Thanks, Roger.
Have a good one. We'll be back shortly.